Hey everybody, this week is Parshas Chaya Sara and welcome back. We're indoors today because of the bad weather. And my question for us this week is, why of all the Parshot in the Torah, there's only one named after a woman, and that is Sarah. This week's Parsha is Chaya Sara, and perhaps the answer can be found in the first verse in the Parsha, Chaf Gimel Aleph 23:1, Vayu Chaya Sara Mea Shana, and the life of Sarah was 100 years. The Esrim Shana, 20 years. V'sheva shanim, and 7 years, Shnei Chayei Sara, and these were the years of the life of Sarah. So it would have been much easier had the verse just said Sarah lived 127 years. Why say she lived 100, she lived 20, she lived 7? The Midrash tells us that when she was 100, she was like 20 when it comes to sin. She was pure of sin like a 20-year-old. And when she was 20, she was beautiful as a 7-year-old. Now that's the medrash that Rashi brings down, and I totally don't get it, but it's a very nice midrash. Rav Hirsch has something that I think really resonates with me and perhaps with you. Each one of these stages represent a time period in a person's life. There's a time when we're 100, when we're in our old age. There's a time when we're 20, when we're in midlife in our youth. And then there's a time when we're our childhood, when we're 7. And Rav Hirsch says that the verse is trying to convey to us that when Sarah was 7, she didn't wish to be 20. And when she was 20, she didn't wish to be 7. And when she was 100, she didn't wish to be 20 or 7. But she took what those experiences had to offer and moved forward with them. So when she was 20, she took what she learned when she was in her childhood. And when she was in her youth, she took that forward into her adolescence, and then into her midlife, and then to her old age. And it's important about making the most of every moment. Before we go to bed at night, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, tells us in chapter 71 that it's a good practice before we go to bed at night, before we say the Shema, before we go down to rest, we should think about how we spent our day. Were there people that we might have offended? Were there opportunities that were lost? What's still ahead? And did we leave any opportunities that we could have taken advantage of? I know for me, I'd like to think that at the end of the day, I leave it on empty. 86,400 seconds. There's a lot of time to do a lot of good in this world. And so perhaps maybe that's what Sarah was teaching us, to make the most out of every moment. And that's a lesson that can apply to all mankind. And therefore, she, perhaps, Hashem feels that she deserves to have a parsha named after her, because that is the lesson. She lived a full life. A full life is embracing the moment that we're in and not necessarily pining for what was or what could be, but to be in the moment. If you like what you hear, please pass it on. Thanks for listening. Shabbat Shalom.